Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Social Club at the End of the World. And we're leading with a couple of really powerful topics. I'm going to let Doctors in Utopia recap the first topic. I volunteer, or I offer to Dan or Jason or Doctors in Utopia to recap the second topic as well. And then let's go round table. On to you, Doctors. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here.
I think I'm unclear. Are we going to talk about the freedom of speech, or I thought we were doing the Guy McPherson?
I just wanted to respect that you had led with the freedom of speech because that's a really great topic. But I'm happy to lead with Guy McPherson as well. Whatever y'all are comfortable.
Why don't we do the Guy McPherson? It seems like that's where the conversation has gone.
Totally. Would you like to lead that, Doctoress, or who wants to kick it off? I'm happy to, but go ahead.
I don't want to.
Okay. I'll tell you what, let me just take the lead and then everyone just jump in when you feel like it. So basically, Guy McPherson's most recent video, which has gotten many thousands of views in a number of days, it's a 24-minute kind of recap of where we're at. And he basically says, number one, we've got two big paradoxes. One is that civilization is a heat engine. And however, if we turn off the heat engine of civilization, with all the sulfur particulates and everything that are being generated by all the coal burning power plants, that reflectivity would be lost, and we would trigger cascading effects of accelerated climate change, the likes of which we have never seen. And because we're so close to that 2-degree mark, take away the reflectivity of the emissions of the coal burning power plants and other particulates that we keep pumping up into the atmosphere, like a juggler tossing, 1,000 balls, keeping 1,000 balls in the air at the same time, because this stuff does fall down. And that's the point. You shut down the power plants, this stuff falls down, we lose the reflectivity, and we trigger cascading runaway climate change. So that's the paradox, is that civilization is the heat engine, but by now it's so severe that if we turn off civilization, we go into accelerated warming. That's one paradox. The second paradox he talks about is that we would need massive scale geoengineering to have a chance at survival at this point. But then couple that with he says that geoshading won't work. Now, I happen to disagree with that, and I'll talk about that later if there's an opening. But he says that's the second paradox. And then pair those two paradoxes with the predicament that we're in the middle of the 6th mass extinction, and that humanity itself is slated for extinction. So, and then he ventures into, given that all this is the case, why on earth is no one talking about it? We've got, the vast majority of humanity on Earth alive right now has weeks or months to live, and not weeks or months until we reach some tipping point. No, weeks or months to live. And why on earth aren't we even talking about all this? So now the next phase of the recap is that I propose, and unless people have more to say directly about the video, in which case just jump in. But why don't we recap of the last several months? Look at all the natural disasters that have happened, the scale of the disasters. And, I'll just start by kind of recapping. And this is to simply say, this is not theoretical anymore. I mean, back in the 1980s, when people would talk about global warming, it was something that was decades out in the future. And, but technology and blah, 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 and you could really kick the can down the road and feel good about it. Not so much anymore. Both poles are disintegrating simultaneously. We'll probably have an ice-free Arctic this summer, causing just runaway heating. And what used to be the air conditioner of the planet, the Arctic ice, is now a broken air conditioner, and about to be a non-existent air conditioner, as it just becomes a hot, dark blue ocean absorbing sunlight and a runaway train. Just the Arctic ice alone. Meanwhile, the South Pole is collapsing. Antarctica is collapsing. Greenland is melting down at a ferocious rate. We've had wildfires in Greenland this last summer for the first time ever. Record-breaking fires in North America. Record-breaking hurricane season. You know, all the statistics are in deep doo-doo. We are in deep doo-doo. Everyone knows it. You know, the methane release, the methane hydrates, this and that. I mean, the list just is endless. And, you know, I kind of feel like I'm looking at some really sophisticated dashboard of a BMW or something. I'm on the inside, the windows are rolled up, and I'm looking at all the indicators. Meanwhile, you know, people are blasting flamethrowers at the car from the outside. You know, yeah, I'm still alive and the car hasn't, you know, completely combusted yet, but all the indicators are going blip, 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 blip. And I'm kind of like, hey, look, everyone, we're still alive. So that whole climate change thing must be a hoax. My goodness. Anyway, I've kind of had diarrhea at the mouth here for the last couple of minutes, so I'm just going to go on mute and let people chime in.
Yeah. So to follow up on what you just said, Jamin, which lays it out pretty well. I really think that Guy McPherson himself has a responsibility at this point to explain, you know, to put out a YouTube or in some sort of a fashion to explain what he's talking about when he is referring to this revision of days. And of course, he did say most of the people on the globe will be dying in a matter of days and months. So that
sorry, not days and months. He said weeks or weeks.
I'm sorry, you're right. I'm sorry, days and weeks, not months,
no, not days,
not
weeks.
years, not decades.
Yep. Weeks and months, not days. Weeks and months.
Okay, sorry about that. So the thing is that you know, for him to come out with that when in the past, you know, he's kind of said originally. I remember him saying 2030 plus or minus 9 years. It takes you almost out to 2040 or down to about 2021, which is just around the corner. But he has always tended to use, you know, a decade, you know, that could be, although he would sometimes qualify that by saying, yeah, well, you really don't have a decade. But those prognostications don't mean very much to me unless it's explained why he has drawn that conclusion. And given the other thing that's disturbing to me is we're talking about this right now. The four of us, we're talking about it. But I haven't seen much in the way of commentary about that, you know, from people like Kevin Hester, et cetera, in any kind of meaningful way. And again, I do think that Guy McPherson, you know, I saw somewhere he's trying to sell his homestead in New Mexico. He's going on tours, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me if you really think everything is going down in that brief period of time. Why are you even bothering with X, Y, and Z? You know, so anyway, I just wanted to throw those thoughts out there, and I'm going to mute out and let somebody else jump in.
You know, the first thing, oh, I'm sorry, doctor, you go ahead, doctor.
I was just going to say, yeah, I said this to you yesterday, Jamin, that I think it's not that prudent to give dates on when the end of the world is going to happen. There's been a lot of prophecy about that throughout the ages. You know, this is this date, it's that date, you know, it hadn't happened. So I just think, you know, it's better to just stick with the facts and not make those kind of date predictions. And he does. And like Dan said, why is he selling his house? Why is he taking his girlfriend on these trips? You know, he's planning for the future. And, you know, that's, yeah, but we're in a meltdown. Absolutely. This is a meltdown of our planetary ecosystems. And the most significant thing I think that we should be working with in his 24-minute address is the corruption of the university that he talked about. And why isn't our intellectual class looking at this issue every single day. And why aren't our universities coming up with an alternative model? This is the biggest question that I think we face. How do we inspire our intellectual class to start being responsible?
Yeah. You know, great points. I'd like to add a couple things. One is that, you know, Guy McPherson has never said, you know, this is your expiration date. This is the date that the world's going to end. He's always talked in terms of time frames and at some point outer limit time windows. Like a year ago, he was saying maximum 10 years. And then, you know, a year later, maximum 9 years. So he's been consistent there. But when you give an outer limit window, right? You know, I mean, I gave an example to a friend last night when I was talking about this because he was pressing me on the same thing. He said, "Oh, he's changed. He's changed his tune. Before he talked 10 years, and now he's talking weeks or months. What happened?" There actually is no change, and I'll tell you why. Here's the example I gave my friend, and I gave him a very vivid example just so I'd make sure it would stick. I said, "Look, if I had to give an outer limit of when's the next time I'm going to, you know, have sexual intercourse, I'd probably say something like 2 weeks, because I can't really imagine it going beyond 2 weeks that I wouldn't. But it'll probably happen in 24 hours, right? It's just if I have to give an outer limit window by when, okay, I'm going to be conservative, right? So when Guy McPherson said 10 years a year ago, I believe he was being conservative. He was saying, but it could be a couple years, you know, and if you consider the exponential nature of it and look at all the natural disasters that have happened just in the last 6 months, if it is truly exponential, and I happen to believe that it is, short of massive planetary scale geoengineering or other mega measures like that would really change the game, then I actually believe that we're looking at months right now as our current trajectory for, you know, for mass death of humanity. And when he says, you know, almost all humanity, I mean, I think it's basically going to be everyone except for those who are in underground bunkers or nuclear submarines or on the, you know, the space station, International Space Station or something like that. So really, I don't see any inconsistency, and it's just a matter of time frame. I'd be surprised if, you know, if at the rate that we're going, unless we do something truly radical, and I'm doing my radical stuff. I'll be at the University of Washington all day tomorrow, dressed as Darth Vader. Doctors Newtopia and I have been interviewed by a reporter for the University of Washington daily newspaper. They're doing a feature story on my activism at the university as Darth Vader, you know, and my movement to bring down the drug cartels. And they filmed me for a half an hour last week, and they're writing a 1,000-word feature article. It'll probably be front page. So I'm doing such radical stuff, and I'm getting more and more aggressive at challenging the criminal drug cartels. I'm going to confront on Thursday someone who has threatened me with physical violence related to, of all things, the community cafes, yet another project I'm working on. And I just want to say very clearly, I am not afraid of death anymore, because number one, there's not really that much to look forward to in terms of life on Earth outside of the revolution. The revolution fires me up. Everything else, from 401ks to tax returns to what I'm going to do next summer, or is there even going to be a next summer? You know, there's just a lot less to live for. There's way too many of us. We're farting all these greenhouse gases all over the place. We're just destroying what's left. I mean, it's just, life is not fun anymore. So I'm not afraid of death. At the rate we're going, I'll be dead anyway in maximum 2 years. So why not play full out? And that's what I'm doing. Full out revolution, challenging the drug cartels, challenging the narco state, challenging all the forces of corruption and evil that keep people starving, and really stoking a revolution. Because if we can make this revolution happen, we can organize humanity to do the mass scale geoshading that would not solve all of our problems. Please don't get me wrong. Please, please, please. but buy us some time, for crying out loud. It's like the guy who just got clobbered by a pickup truck while riding his bicycle. The first thing you do is get the guy breathing again, right? Like, if he's not breathing, he's going to be dead in 2 minutes. All right. So let's get him breathing. And if it takes an artificial breathing machine, an iron lung, or whatever to get him, do it. That's what I'm saying about planetary geoengineering. We got to do it. Otherwise, we are definitely dead. Going on mute.
So, you know, I thought it was interesting because we were talking at some point about Daniel Pinchbeck's book, How Soon Is Now, and Daniel Pinchbeck was on, and Guy McPherson had a chance to speak with him, and you could sort of tell by his eyes in that thing what he thought, like, oh yeah, okay, great. But I heard him mention something, and I can't tell you the minutes on that when he mentioned in this thing, but he did sort of mention something about, I don't think there's going to be some sort of like no revolution in thought or spirituality is going to save us. I think that was part of something in there. But I think going back to what you were saying earlier about it, I think it was just, he finally came together and put like a video of just an overall explanation of what he was talking about together. Because before, you'd have to come on and sort out who this Guy McPherson guy is and why he's important to begin with by watching a bunch of videos that are maybe longer than the average person is going to invest time into. So this is this overall, you know, short kind of 20 or 30-minute video that you can just watch and hear him go through it. I think it was good, you know, overall getting the word out sense of it. And so maybe that's why he chose to just sort of say in weeks or months. And because at the end of the day, even if it's 9 years, you could add up the months and he'll be like, yeah, it was, you know, this 100 and some odd months. You know? So, you know, this way he can't really be wrong. He's not really making an accurate prediction that it's really going to be in a few weeks. Probably not, but, you know, because I mean, even the way things are going, I mean, I don't see it happening in a few weeks. But I guess, you know, if the world all of a sudden went to nuclear war or something, then, you know, it could be a few weeks. Just, you know, I agree with you, Jamin, that we shouldn't just give up, that we should try to wake everybody up. Even if people like Guy McPherson say there is no hope of waking everybody up, we have weeks or months. And even if we did wake everybody up, you know, it's not worth doing anything about it. I think it's still worth doing something about it because, like he said, if that's what you're all about, you're going to go out, you know, going to go out fighting. And
I will like, you know, him saying that there is no new thought or spirituality that can bring us out of this. It seems like to me that's the only thing that will. And he's just not listening to those alternative voices that are saying this exact thing. Yeah. And that's a real shame. And it's very kind of ecocentric to have that limited perspective that he holds now.
Yeah, I think that he definitely comes off more now than ever sort of jaded by his whole life experience, right? I mean, he was trying to fight the system and then he was kicked out of the system and primarily ignored by everybody. And he's been doing this for 20 or 30 years talking about this. And at this point now, he's like, well, you guys think something positive is going to come, like there's going to be this positive thought revolution. He's like, I just don't see it. Because I've been trying to tell people this, that we need a positive thought explosion for, you know, 20 or 30 years, and no one's listened until now, and now it's too late. So I feel like, you know, he could, even if he is wrong, he's just so locked into fuck it mode. Like, yeah, fuck it. I'm done. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do, but I think we're all going to die. You know, that's, so I think you see him over the videos, over the years, getting closer and closer to that point, and now he's really just said, "Fuck it." I mean, like, I don't see it coming.
You know, he is not cooperating with, in any kind of significant way, with problem solvers, and that's a real tragedy, really. Because I think that he's talking about such a dystopia, and the opposite of that is creating the planetary system that does work. And those are the ideas that were popular in the 1960s, like with Buckminster Fuller or with Paulo Soleri coming up with new visionary designs. And there was other architects as well. And they're there now in a new generation. So it's just looking at the solutions too, and giving energy to those solutions. And as long as he doesn't do that or point in the direction of those kind of solutions, then he's not really doing a service.
Just to a couple of thoughts. I think that as long as people do not have a real sense that near-term extinction is a possibility, it's that serious. Maybe something could be done. It should be done if there is, if there are interventions. But unless people understand the danger, you know, it's almost like if you don't have any sense that there's a very, very serious threat, you're not going to be very motivated to do anything to prevent it. And so I see that as a huge problem. And Guy McPherson has been fundamentally censored. I mean, we know about him. A lot of people know of Guy McPherson, have followed him for a period of time. But generally speaking, he's pretty censored. And of course, as a professor emeritus from University of Arizona, you would hope that some of these universities could have created forums for these issues to be discussed, but they're part of the censorship process. But I go back to something I think I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, you know, where I've been doing some research on violence, and I have been going over military history and how the psychologists who are responsible for figuring out the best way to have their soldiers be capable of violence. So one of the things that came up when I was looking at this was that when they carpet bombed, firebombed German cities in World War II, they had an anticipation that those civilian populations would completely unravel psychologically. They would all, you know, there'd be collective mental breakdowns that would occur. They based that on what they were seeing happen with a lot of the troops that were in combat zones for a period of time. You know, they didn't call it PTSD back in World War II, but it's what they're talking about. But when they actually did the bombing, they discovered that the populations did not suffer collective breakdowns. They actually came together in a cohesive way. It was the same thing when they bombed England, when the Germans bombed England. And so I think that if people understood the potential cataclysm that's coming, it's happening. You know, maybe we could do something. I think you would see a tremendous drive. Let's do it. And you're not going to see people, you know, completely having, you know, all sorts of breakdowns and chaos emerge. You know, people could come together collectively and just simply say, you know, let's do the best we can. Maybe we need to pull tens of trillions of dollars out of these military budgets and put it into supporting geoengineering interventions. And then if things go south, at least we tried, we did the best we could, and we can endure whatever it is that's going to be coming. We're all going to die anyway. And, you know, as Guy McPherson always said, you know, we all know we're going to die, and nobody's going to escape that fate. So I just feel like when I listen to Michael Manfred, who's definitely now a very establishment climatologist, he did suffer a lot of abuse at a certain point, the threats and you know, all of that. But he seems, I've heard him say at various points, we don't want to induce despair in the population, things like that. I think that, you know, you have to say that the population, you know, people are not going to massively fall apart. They will be able to remain cohesive and generate pressure to try whatever there is to do. Is there something we could do to refreeze the Arctic? Maybe so, maybe not. But let's try whatever we can. Is there anything we can do to draw down the greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere? It seems like there are some technologies that if they were upscaled, they could perhaps perform that function. But you have to have a complete reorientation as to what's happening. I'm going to go ahead and mute out. Just wanted to contribute that.
Seems to all of these, what we're talking about, to be able to implement a program, it's going to take a new operating system. It's going to take a new organizing principle. And that's where the new thought is so important, the planetary thought of reconnecting us with this marvelous planet. And that's it's philosophy.
Yeah, you know, for example, just to make a metaphor, I mean, in all the proverbial science fiction novels and science fiction movies and science fiction stories about an asteroid coming to planet Earth, right? You never see a scenario where people are like, "Oh, that's a hoax. Let's not. No, don't look up in the sky. That's a hoax." You know, no, people are all coming to. Okay, what do we need to do? All right, well, the Joint Chiefs of Staff are there. Okay, how many nuclear missiles would it take to blow that thing up? You know, it's something, right? But it's all about action. You know, you never see people say, "Oh, that's a hoax. That's some liberal conspiracy." No, give me a break. You know, humanity, and I'm saying this on a recording, intending for the world to hear it. Humanity, wake the fuck up. If ever there were a time to wake up, it's now. And that's why I go to the University of Washington once a week, and for 10 hours straight, I sing in English, I sing in Spanish, I threaten the drug cartels directly to their faces if anyone's walking by. My latest song is, "We'll cut you down. You won't get up again, so you better get out of town. We'll cut you down. You won't get up again, so you better get out of town. Criminal drug cartels." I mean, I am taunting them. Look, I'm willing to become a fucking martyr if that's what it takes. This isn't about me preserving some little bubble of my life like I got accustomed to in 1978 and that I'm not willing to let go of. It's time to let go. It's time to let loose. And yes, it's time to get up at the lecture hall and say, hey, we need some real democracy here and some real conversation, because we're all about to die. If not now, when? After we're dead? What are we going to have, like, you know, discussion forums up in heaven or hell or purgatory or wherever we end up? The time is now. Going on mute.
Well, I saw that movie Geostorm about a month ago, and I recommend, you know, you go see it, because it gives us a vision of how geoengineering could possibly work, and this space station Earth relationship of using outer space as a means to control the planet. And it's a good movie, really, in a lot of ways, because it shows this possibility. And the geostorms, these storms are happening all over the planet now. They're uncontrollable. And this is how they decided to start managing the climate through these satellites, a network of satellites. I don't know how realistic the science is in the movie, but it does give you an image of global awareness and what to do about it. I don't know if that was a big box office seller. It doesn't seem to be, but go see it or see it on Netflix. And, about like getting up in the auditorium and speaking out. I mean, what I would like is to be listened to. And there are certain ways to do that, and there's certain ways to not do that. And how to be able to get into a situation of being listened to, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, doctors, you're going to be quoted in the University of Washington daily newspaper, so thousands of people are going to listen to you. We're getting there, but my point is, look, whether maybe it's not screaming in an auditorium, maybe it's putting on a costume and singing and dancing like I'm doing. But my point is something. We need to do something outside, the normal, conventional. Submit a blog post, comment on a Facebook, like this, unlike that. Whatever. We're dying. This modality is literally killing us. So it's time to bust out with something radical. And yes, we need to organize some serious planetary geoengineering, not because there's any guarantee that it'll work, but because we have to try something. Or we just keep slipping down the Guy McPherson death spiral to hell in a matter of months. Going on mute.
It seems like to me, you have to have an audience, or, I'm just trying to work it out now. It has to be that public place. In order to have a revolutionary movement, you need a revolutionary place where people gather. And we saw that in the parks during the Occupy movement.
Well, we are building it at the base of the statue of George Washington at the University of Washington in the state of Washington. It's so symbolic. And this isn't to say that George Washington was some great person. He was a slave owner, for crying out loud. He was, probably a sociopath. But my point is, it's symbolic. We're a very symbolic species driven by story and images and legacy and all of this. Let's invoke whatever the hell we have to invoke, imperfect or otherwise, and get this party started. So it's happening at the University of Washington. We're going national. I'm going to be on national news because I'm going to keep cranking up the heat until I am on national news. I recorded a video last night exposing this person who is threatening me with physical violence. I am out there. And I ain't letting up until I'm dead. And then I'll probably start a radical revolution in heaven or something.
Yeah, it sounds like Nietzsche, the will to power. And perhaps that's what you are invoking. And all I can do is just bless it from here, Tucson, Arizona. And, wishing you well underneath the statue of Washington. I'm sure it's something watching you sing and dance for 10 hours.
Well, let me offer you this, Doctress. I offer you to be my guest and come up to Seattle again, except this time I'm going to give you the microphone, and we're going to be at the base of the tower, and you're going to talk as much as you want to talk. And only when you don't have something to say will I start singing Spanish love songs after dark. What a combination.
Yeah.
Going on mute.
Well, that's a nice offer. We'll think about it. Don't have any words right now.
That's totally fair. This is a compassionate forum, and no one is ever compelled to to ante up words when there are none. I'm just flailing here trying to survive, right? I'm like the fish on the deck of the ship, you know. If I don't flail, I'm definitely dead. Flailing may or may not get me off the deck of the ship, but I'm going to flail. Or as Peter Melton says, if we're going down, I'm going down pissing on the fire. And fuck it. You know, if I have to become a martyr, fuck it. Because we're going down anyway.
One other thought concerning the psychology of the individuals that seemingly are ignoring the problem. You know, our culture is one that really breeds sociopathy or psychopathy, and you know, and so we have so many individuals who are, in a sense, unable to have empathy for other individuals. So if we get a wipeout in Bangladesh or India, the average American who has been socialized into this culture and who can very, very easily shift into a sociopathic mode. And when you combine that with the distance, you know, it's kind of an ugly feature of human nature. But we do have, I mean, at this point in time, you have so many people who, you know, either when I use the term sociopath, I'm just referring to somebody totally generated by their own predatory self-interest, with the and you add on to that the capacity to have some sort of loyalty to a small group, usually family, maybe some friends, and someone who is psychopathic essentially has no real loyalty or ability to sacrifice for anyone, including family and friends. And so in this very competitive, you know, winner take all kind of society, those kinds of individuals who have no concern for what they are doing to improve their own lives at the sacrifice of others, they just simply aren't capable of genuinely caring. And they will constantly come up with all sorts of rationalizations and excuses as to why something has happened or why they were motivated. And so when you're talking about, you know, politicians or lawyers who tend to control a lot of what's going on, and certainly the CEOs at corporations, you know, the hierarchy up at the top, you're talking about a lot of individuals who are sociopathic or psychopathic. And you know, that's something I think which would be good to have understood. And you know, someone like Donald Trump, for example, it appears that he is totally motivated by what he thinks is his own self-interest at any given juncture in time. And I would not be surprised if they go after his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, or anybody else who's kind of close to him. I would not be very surprised if he just simply threw them under the bus and moved on to pursue his own goals for himself. You know, power for Trump at this point in time. So when we're talking about individuals, I think it's important to emphasize that it's very, very easy to become sociopathic in our culture. And the distancing, when you have that distancing, you know, all the pain is going over there in Asia and Africa and Central America, but it's not really in your own backyard. It's very, very easy to just simply be detached from it. And again, going back to the military history, it was the infantry soldiers in closer combat who tended to break down and also had a great resistance to killing. And they had to do a lot of changes in the training to get a good percentage willing to kill, as they had in the Vietnam War, close up. But people who were dropping the bombs from the planes, killing most of the people, or firing artillery shells at a great distance, they never had the same kind of breakdowns or the problems that those who were close up and had to look in the face. So, you know, climate change, the way Guy McPherson brought up, you know, weeks, months, that's getting more in your face. And even though I do want him to explain what his thinking is, that he's moved to that kind of a prognostication, I think that it's a good thing for people to have a sense that you are at risk. It's not just, you know, the unwashed masses in India and other Southeast Asia, Africa. So I'm going to mute out. Just wanted to throw that in.
So I recently saw an article about a book, maybe, that was maybe titled something about how baby boomers are sociopaths, in a manner of that they only care about themselves, and they've basically, you know, torn up the whole future of future generations. So they only care about themselves, and they really don't care about future generations of Americans. And it's interesting because it wasn't widely seen. Like, I'm the only one who've heard of it. I think I maybe brought it up to my father. I think he was very upset that I'd even freaking suggest that all this huge group of people could be so fucking selfish that they could destroy the entire planet, you know, not thinking about future generations. You know, and so I hear where you're coming from, Dan. It's, you know, and I think we've all said that there has to be a thought revolution and a new type of culture and a new type of society that's going to have to come out if we're going to save ourselves at all, because the current climate seems to just be all about thyself. So, you know, I hear you.
You know, and like, for example, Thanksgiving weekend, I was talking with some teenagers who were hanging out with us. They, you know, this one guy, you know, this bright, you know, handsome teenager was like, well, you know, look, if everything is being destroyed, now is the time to go out and see everything before it's all destroyed. So it's just this very selfish, I want to go to Alaska, I want to go here, I want to go there before it's all gone. Goodness. It's like, to the metaphor, the asteroid is coming towards Earth. Oh, well, let's go see a bunch of cool places. I mean, no talk about doing something about the asteroid, preventing it from taking us out.
I think that's so true as far as people like Guy McPherson. You told me on the phone that he's planning a trip up to Norway or wherever it was to see the Northern Lights. Yeah, I mean, people are still doing the business as usual and not organizing in their local communities. In order to do anything, you have to root down in order to rise up.
Amen.
And certainly, I know for myself, it's like fight or flight at this point. And I think people are the fleeing. They're getting on planes and they're going places, you know, to see the last glaciers, or, you know, they want to experience life before, you know, doomsday happens, before there is no more airplanes, which is certainly not a good way of thinking. We're not thinking creatively. And the only thing that's going to get us out is the new thought, which is a creative pathway, unstucking the old way and moving forward. And Jamin, I really think if you put yourself in the role of this mighty revolutionary at the statue of George Washington, at this point, what is your strategy? If you do become the revolutionary hero liberating the university, what does that liberation look like?
I'll tell you exactly what it looks like. Strategy is, first of all, just keep amping up the media, right? It's kind of like the Bitcoin strategy. Just keep jacking up the price. You still can't really do anything with this stuff other than jack up the price. So jack up the exposure. Then when I have the attention of the world, and I'll just flash on the screen real briefly. Let me just do a quick screen share because this picture really tells 1,000 words. Bear with me one moment. This is the story that I'm getting out there, that I'm putting out. Can everyone see the shared screen? The top, stop sign, etc. Can people see that? Yes, no, maybe. See, I can't see you guys, so if you give me a thumbs up,
yes,
it doesn't do it.
Yes, I see it.
Yeah.
So, the story is, look, we're on this highway to hell. That's the red arrow. All these organized crimes against Mother Earth. Look, a couple of cavemen beating down a tree is not causing abrupt climate change. Crimes against Mother Earth, like fracking, like the Dakota Access Pipeline, like the automotive industry, like Monsanto. The list goes on and on and on and on. These are all organized crimes against Mother Earth, giving us mass extinction, including human extinction. That's the path we're on. This is the highway to hell on Earth, and we're in the fast lane. We need an off-ramp from this highway, ramp that people will actually wake up to. People wake up to enemy tribe coming to kill us and steal our women. Let's get out there and stop them. So I'm waking up all these Vikings in the state of Washington that this is this enemy tribe called criminal drug cartels, and we need to root them out. And we're going to achieve that victory. It's actually not that hard to do. Take a look at this next poster. This next poster tells us how to do it. Criminal drug cartels. Prohibition with the stroke of a pen, Donald Trump's hand, and then we replace it with something sensible at the local level. We knock out the foundation, the financial foundation of these violent criminal drug cartels. Easy. We have massive political capital. And then we expand our mandate to all forms of organized crime. Sicilian mafia, Russian mafia, you name it. More political capital. By the time we've taken out organized crime, I'm speaking in broad brushstrokes because we need a broad strategy before we can even get into the details, root down to the details, as doctors would say, as I would say too. In broad brushstrokes, at the end of this second phase, we have Alexander the Great scale political capital as a movement, and then here comes the key inflection point. We transition from just traditional organized crime, drug cartels, Sicilian mafia, etc., to all forms of organized crime, including organized crimes against Mother Earth herself, which are the most urgent that we need to address. You know, quite frankly, a few more humans biting the dust does not trouble me anywhere near as much as our mother dying and not being able to support any life anymore. So this is the real prize. But here's the thing. If we started here with this rightmost black circle with a diagonal line through it, organized crimes against Mother Earth, nobody wakes up because it's now been proven, essentially scientifically, that people do not wake up to planetary threats, but they will wake up to enemy tribe coming to kill us and take our women. Let's get them. We wake up for that shit. We wake up for it. We organize for it.
Jamin, this is Dan. I just wanted to jump in. So
yeah,
you have this set up so that it's referring to criminal drug cartels, and then you kind of progress along. You can substitute, criminal drug cartels, that's one group that you have a lot of experience with, and it's easy to get the energy to focus on. But we could also, in that first circle, you could put in things like political corruption, which is kind of an organized crime. It's really a lot of bribery and selling out communities, etc. You could put in, the corruption of the military industrial complex. So in that first circle, there's a number of things that could be utilized. And I do, there's one feature of this that I think, I'm not sure exactly how to explain it, but it's having people have concerns. So some people might be very concerned about criminal drug cartels, others about political corruption, others about, the sociopathy of the corporations, etc. And all of those things are kind of entry points into eventually understanding that it's destroying our habitat. Everybody goes down, we're all in this together, as you said. If we were in all those movies or stories where you're getting invaded from outer space, the world comes together psychologically. So I do think that it's a useful entry point where people can really relate to something on a more micro level. But it is very clear that the same processes that allow criminal drug cartels to operate, that allow the unbelievably corrupt political processes to unfold, that allow, the endless death and destruction that the United States military is sponsoring, and the intelligence communities are sponsoring all around the world. There's enough issues for that first circle to be, put in there what you like, and then let's move on down. And this is, I'm going to have to leave. I got to leave a little bit early today. But I really do think that without anxiety, without an understanding that we may not have much time left, and people are going to ignore a lot of things. They won't be highly motivated unless they really, for example, if I've as a city of Chicago employee, pensions and the fact that certain elements of the political wealth hierarchy, corporate hierarchy in Chicago is constantly looking to essentially steal the pensions away. That motivates people in a very significant way. They actually get angry. They actually move forward, because what are you going to do? Take away my pension? I don't have any assets to support myself. If you do that, you're going to move me to near poverty or worse. So I think that people have to know that this is real, and we don't have a lot of time. And unless you're prepared to live with the consequences of, burying your head in the sand like an ostrich, you know, it's going to happen regardless. So hopefully we can find ways to generate up action on the part of people to take tens of trillions of dollars out of the crazy military budgets and try to preserve the planet. And clearly there would have to be a reorganization process, because we could never continue to live the way that we have. And that's where other people kind of come in. So I've got to sign off, and I'm, you know, as always, I'll really be looking forward getting together next Tuesday and, you know, have a meeting. So I got to say goodbye to everybody now.
Great to see you, Dan. Please watch the rest of this, because we're going to address some of the points that you just made.
I will definitely do so.
Okay, awesome. Great to see you, Dan. See you next week. All right. If I may, I'd like to just address real quickly, because Dan brought up some stuff related to what I'm doing and what could be in that first circle. Here, the main point I want to make is this, and it's not to take away anything of what Dan just said. Really valid points. My point is simply this. In marketing, if you want to blast your way in, you need to focus. You need to concentrate the rays of the sun onto that concentrated speck that lights the paper on fire. And that's what I'm doing. I'm concentrating on criminal drug cartels. You know, could I concentrate on, you know, Chicago pensioners losing their pensions? Of course. Would very many people listen? I don't think so. Not in the way I'm doing it. Because what this is doing, it is blasting into people's minds. Because here's somebody, here's a, you know, a techie, an ex-Microsoft techie, also formerly pioneer of the cannabis industry in the state of Washington, taking on the criminal drug cartels. It wakes people up. And we need to concentrate attention on this topic. And it wakes people up. And now in the interview, and now that I have a forum, now that I have, you know, a platform, and people are asking me questions and interviewing me, now I spell it out. Here's the deal. At first, it was just a sign: criminal drug cartels out of the state of Washington. When Doctors in Utopia was kind enough to come up here in early July of this year, and we did the 4th of July event, it was just the sign and one song, New Washington. Now it's expanded into a bunch of signs. I just showed you two of them. And I adhere those temporarily to the base of the statue of George Washington, so everyone walking by can read the posters and see that we're on a highway to hell, and see that there is a possible off-ramp from this highway to hell. And I say to people, if you've got a better off-ramp, out with it. Come to the microphone. Say it. Say your piece. And maybe it's a bunch of off-ramps. Criminal drug cartels, this whole criminality thing is one, arcology is another, geoshading is another, but they've all got to come together around one planetary movement where humanity says enough is enough. It's time to do something about this. Go on mute.
I think there is this thing called the great man theory of history. And my understanding is, you know, it's kind of that one-pointed concentration. You know, the man is somehow speaks for the collective consciousness of the world, and somehow that creates this rise to power. And I think Abby Hoffman and some of the 60s people were doing that as well, getting out there with their flag clothes, which was kind of revolutionary at the time, and becoming spectacles in the media. And once they became spectacles in the media, then they had this following that happened. And that's more on the line of the great, great man theory of history. So, you know, it seems like that is some of the people you are following in the footsteps of, as you mentioned, Alexander the Great. So, you know, just see if nature takes you on that ride, you know, lifts you up. If you are on that wave and you become the spokespeople for planet Earth, you know, that's to, you know, we'll see. Time will tell. Time will tell. And, you know, I think Napoleon, things just like worked in his direction, that he was able to move into a position of extreme power. And then, of course, this, you also can be knocked off the pedestal as well.
And I'm at the point, knock me off the damn pedestal. I'll gladly become a martyr, but I need to do, but we need to do something. We need to wake people up. I've literally considered, and I may actually do this at some point, is pour a bunch of gasoline over myself and light myself on fire. Fuck it. You know, but I'm simply not willing to go down, you know, watching daytime television and eating Hostess Twinkies. I'm not fucking willing to, not to suggest that anyone's advocating that I do that, of course, but you know, really for me, anything else than anything other than radical revolution, I'm simply not interested in. Not interested. Going on mute.
Well, for me, the revolution is about creating something else. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but the Buddhist monks who set themselves on fire in Vietnam, they woke up America, and that woke up the resistance to the Vietnam War. And so I do believe in destruction as an element of creation. Going on mute.
Everything is, we're already in destruction.
Exactly.
We're already in destruction. So the problem is how to be creative. What is that creative nugget that we're missing, and how does that happen on a planetary scale? And what do we need in order for this creative project to manifest? But you're doing something, you know, let's see what the article, when is the article supposed to be published?
You know, I don't know. I know she had a deadline of this morning to get the copy in, but I don't know how many days or weeks or whatever the process is for laying out a given paper. The paper is published on a daily basis, but you can imagine there's quite a bit of lead time and work getting a complete paper published. So could be a week, could be 2 weeks, could be days. I'll have to consult with Guy McPherson to get his estimate on time frame. Just kidding.
Yeah, you want it published before the end of the world.
That would be kind of nice. See that and that's really my fundamental point. Whatever we're going to do, let's do it before the end of the world, which means let's do it now.
Yeah.
So your message is obviously very different than the Guy McPherson message, because your message is just, well, we should do something even if it's too late.
Yeah, because the thing is, we don't know if it's too late, and we won't know until it's too late that it was too late, right? So I mean, it's just it's all a philosophical chase your tail circle jerk. My point is, let's take action, Jackson. Period. Going on mute.
Yeah, but action without thought is not really helping situation.
Did I ever advocate for not thinking? This is all about thinking and talking and collective thinking, right? I'm pretty consistent, Doctress.
Yeah, you're very consistent. Yeah, you are. You've been doing this now ever since I've known you, and you're going out there. It's expanded. You got more songs. Yeah, you know, how many people are you? I guess you're going to be talking to a lot of people when the article comes out through mass media. And, you know, then I guess your next step is a national audience. And how you're going to get that, you know, that's another big leap.
Well, let me tell you, once I make the daily at the University of Washington, if the Seattle Times does not jump right on it, And I made this very threat to the daily paper at the University of Washington. After I was out there for several weeks, and I'm the most talked about person on campus, I'm like, where's the daily paper? Why aren't you guys interviewing me? I would just speak it into the microphone, speak it to the world. Because, you know, you got hundreds of people walking by. And I said, listen, if the daily paper doesn't jump on this in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to write a ballad especially for them, congratulating them on their courage and their pioneering in covering this this story that is history in the making. The first state to liberate itself from the death grip of criminal drug cartels. And no one's covering it. And it's happening right here on your campus. Wake up, daily paper, or I will wake you up. And I was ready to go right outside their offices and serenade them all day long for being the spineless losers that they are if they don't do it. And I'll do the same thing to the Seattle Times and local television. But I'm busting my way in, or they're going to have to fucking kill me.
Well, that's a good thing to do. Go right to the source of the media and demand your say.
Absolutely. I will serenade the Seattle Times. I'll create this beautiful ballad of what a bunch of losers at the Seattle Times. They got no spine. They got no balls because they're afraid of the criminal drug cartels and the narco state and the corporation. I'll go off on their front lawn. I'll take a dump on there. I'll drop a steaming dump on their front lawn, you know, whatever it takes. But I'm getting back into the Seattle Times. We're taking over the Times. See, this is revolution. We're taking over the paper. Fuck it. What are we gonna do? Wait a couple years and think about it and maybe pray about it? Bullshit. It's time for action. We're almost dead. Let's take some action.
Well, I think I better go back to my letter writing action.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so I'm going to say goodbye for now. I'll be interested to see the article. And yeah, so you'll be out there tomorrow, Jamin.
I'll be out there tomorrow. And if you want to fly up tonight, we will be out there tomorrow. It's the Wednesday. Really? Hop on a plane. Look, what are we waiting for?
All right. Well, I want to see both of your articles. I can't hop on the plane. Come up there right now. I'm kind of down on Seattle since they towed my car. Sorry. My fight, I guess, would be here. There's millions of people here who are dead asleep.
Yeah.
Worse so than in Seattle and in Phoenix.
Well, get your favorite costume and let's do a live video conference with each other. I'll say I got my brother Jason Robbins. He's Darth Vader down in Long Beach. Woo! Let's give it up for Long Beach. Woo woo woo. You know.
I can't take Darth Vader from you. You could be Darth Vader. I'll be, I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll be Robin Hood.
There you go. Whatever it takes. But it's time for action. It's time for action.
All right. Well, I'm also going to sign off and say goodbye. But I hope to see you guys next week on Tuesday.
Yep. Let's do it.
Next week.
All right. I'm going to stop recording just so we can have a more intimate goodbye, blow kisses and whatnot. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Any last words, Doctoress Jason, before we stop the recording?
Peace.
Peace.
As Doctor's Newtopia prophetically has been expressing. See you all next week. Thanks everyone for watching.